So, in late November of 2025, something started brewing over the waters of Indonesia. A pretty standard low-pressure system. But in just a matter of days, it exploded into tropical cyclone Senyar, a storm that would end up carving a path of absolute devastation across the nation. We're going to break down exactly how this storm came to be, the path it took, and the catastrophic impact it left in its wake.
And it all really begs the question, right? How does a simple weather system, something that happens all the time, escalate into a full-blown catastrophe? Well, the story of Cyclone Senyar, it gives us a really powerful and honestly tragic case study that helps us understand exactly that.
All right, so our story begins where these things so often do, out over the warm tropical waters, with the very first signs of a gathering storm. What is just wild here is the speed. I mean, look at this timeline. On November 21st, it's just a little low-pressure system, what they called Tropical Disturbance 95B. But then, just 4 days later, on the 25th, it gets an upgrade to a tropical depression. And by the very next day, November 26th, bam! It's powerful enough to get an official name, Tropical Cyclone Senyar. That is an incredibly fast development. So who makes that official call? Well, that would be the BMKG, which is Indonesia's Meteorological, Climate, and Geophysics Agency. These are the folks on the ground tracking these systems, and their announcement on the 26th, it confirmed what a lot of people were already fearing. A major cyclone was now officially on its way.
Now, the storm, with its new official name, didn't stay out at sea for long. The next part of our story is really the most critical one. Its landfall on the island of Sumatra.
Mark this date, November 26, 2025. Yeah, the very same day it was named, Tropical Cyclone Senyar hit land. There was just no time to prepare. This is the exact moment a weather event turns into a human disaster.
So what did Senyar actually bring with it? You got to think of it like a three-pronged attack. It wasn't just one thing. It was this devastating combination of just torrential extreme rainfall, destructive high winds, and a storm-driven high tide. This lethal mix is what makes these cyclones so incredibly dangerous.
And the impact of that arsenal, it was immediate and it was widespread. The storm just ripped across the island, leaving this trail of destruction everywhere it went.
Let's just pause for a second and really absorb this number. 34. That's not 34 homes or 34 neighborhoods. That is 34 entire districts and cities across 3 different provinces that were hit by floods and flash floods. The scale of this was just immense.
You can see the storm's path just cut right across the northern part of the island. And the 3 provinces that really bore the brunt of the cyclone's fury were Aceh, North Sumatra, and West Sumatra.
But the damage didn't stop with just the wind and the rain. All that water saturates the ground, which then gives way, triggering all these secondary disasters like landslides and ash floods. And maybe most crucially, all that damage cut off roads and access routes. That meant even more districts and cities were now completely isolated, unable to get help in or get people out.
You know, you might think that once the cyclone itself moves on, the danger's over. But that's not the full story. Not by a long shot. The threat often lingers long after the storm has actually passed.
And here's where we see this really dangerous paradox in the aftermath. So on one hand, you have Cyclone Senyar itself. It had moved away from Indonesia and it was weakening, which sounds like great news, right? But, and this is a huge but, at the same time, the broader weather system it left behind meant that heavy rainfall was still coming down, and it was forecasted to keep coming down in West Sumatra, Jambi, and Rio. So the immediate cyclone was gone, but the threat of more flooding and more landslides, it was still very, very real.
And that all brings us to this final, really critical question. When the wind finally dies down and the storm moves on, what is truly left behind? Because it's not just damaged buildings and flooded roads. It's a massive humanitarian crisis. It's entire communities that are now facing this long, incredibly difficult road to recovery. And it's a powerful reminder that for the people on the ground, the end of the storm is really just the beginning of their story.